Namaskar, Jai Shri Krishna. Acknowledging text 16 of chapter 15, the Pandavas retired timely of first canto creation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 16. Yada dohashu ma pranihitan guru bhishma karna naptru trigarta shalya sendha vabaha lika tyaiha astranya mogha mahimani dirupitani nopasprushura nruharidasami vasurani. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Susharma, Shalya, Jayadratha and Bahalika all directed their invincible weapons against me, but by his Lord Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, the supreme devotee of Lord Narasimhadev, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him. The history of Prahlad Maharaj, the great devotee of Narasimhadev, is narrated in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, a small child of only 5 years, became the object of envy for his great father Hiranyakashipu only because of his becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. The demon father employed all his weapons to kill the devotee son Prahlad, but by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from all sorts of dangerous actions by his father. He was thrown in a fire in boiling oil from the top of a hill, underneath the legs of an elephant, and he was administered poison. At last the father himself took up a chopper to kill his son, and thus Narasimhadev appeared and killed the heinous father in the presence of the son. Thus no one can kill the devotee of the Lord. Similarly, Arjun was also saved by the Lord, although all dangerous weapons were employed by his great opponents like Bhishma. Karna, born of Kunti by the sun god prior to her marriage with Maharaj Pandu, Karna took his birth with bangles and earrings, extraordinary signs for an undaunted hero. In the beginning, his name was Vasusen, but when he grew up, he presented his natural bangles and earrings to Indradev, and thenceforward he became known as Vaikartana. After his birth from the maiden Kunti, he was thrown in the Ganges. Later, he was picked up by Adhiratha, and he and his wife Radha brought him up as their own offspring. Karna was very charitable, especially towards the Brahmanas. There was nothing he could not spare for a Brahman. In the same charitable spirit, he gave in charity his natural bangles and earrings to Indradev, who, being very much satisfied with him, gave him in return a great weapon called Shakti. He was admitted as one of the students of Dronacharya, and from the very beginning there was some rivalry between him and Arjun. Seeing his constant rivalry with Arjun, Duryodhan picked him up as his companion, and this gradually grew into greater intimacy. He was also present in the great assembly of the Draupadi Swayamvar function, and when he attempted to exhibit his talent in that meeting, Draupadi's brother declared that Karna could not take part in the competition because of his being the son of a Shudra carpenter. Although he was refused in the competition, still when Arjun was successful in piercing the fish target on the ceiling and Draupadi bestowed her garland upon Arjun, Karna and the other disappointed princes offered an unusual stumbling block to Arjun while he was leaving with Draupadi. Specifically, Karna fought with him very valiantly, but all of them were defeated by Arjun. Duryodhan was very much pleased with Karna because of his constant rivalry with Arjun, and when he was in power, he enthroned Karna in the state of Anga. Being baffled in his attempt to win Draupadi, Karna advised Duryodhan to attack King Drupad, for after defeating him, both Arjun and Draupadi could be arrested. But Dronacharya rebuked them for this conspiracy, and they refrained from the action. Karna was defeated many times, not only by Arjun but also by Bhimsen. He was the king of the kingdom of Bengal, Orissa and Madras combined. Later on, he took active part in the Rajsuya sacrifice of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and when there was gambling between the rival brothers, designed by Shakuni, Karna took part in the game, and he was very pleased when Draupadi was offered as a bet in the gambling. This fed his old grudge. When Draupadi was in the game, he was very enthusiastic to declare the news, as it is he who ordered Dushrasan to take away the garments of both the Pandavas and Draupadi. He asked Draupadi to select another husband because being lost by the Pandavas, she was rendered a slave of the Kurus. He was always an enemy of the Pandavas, and whenever there was an opportunity, he tried to curb them by all means. During the battle of Kurukshetra, he foresaw the conclusive result, and he expressed his opinion that due to Lord Krishna's being the chariot driver of Arjun, the battle should be won by Arjun. He always differed with Bhishma, and sometimes he was proud enough to say that within 5 days he could finish up the Pandavas if Bhishma would not interfere with his plan of action. But he was much mortified when Bhishma died. He killed Ghattotkach with the weapon Shakti obtained from Indradev. His son Vrushasen was killed by Arjun. He killed the largest number of Pandav soldiers. At last there was a severe fight with Arjun, and it was he only who was able to knock off the helmet of Arjun. But it so happened that the wheel of his chariot stuck in the battlefield mud, and when he got down to set the wheel right, Arjun took the opportunity and killed him, although he requested Arjun not to do so. Napta or Bhurishrava. Bhurishrava was the son of Somadatta, a member of the Kuru family. His other brother was Shalya. Both the brothers and father attended the Swayamvar ceremony of Draupadi. All of them appreciated the wonderful strength of Arjun due to his being the devotee friend of the Lord, and thus Bhurishrava advised the sons of Dhritarashtra not to pick any quarrel or fight with them. All of them also attended the Rajsuya Yajna of Maharaj Yudhishthir. He possessed one Akshauhini regiment of army, cavalry, elephants and chariots, and all these were employed in the battle of Kurukshetra on behalf of Duryodhana's party. He was counted by Bhim as one of the Yuthapatis. In the battle of Kurukshetra, he was especially engaged in a fight with Satyaki, and he killed 10 sons of Satyaki. Later on, Arjun cut off his hands and he was ultimately killed by Satyaki. After his death, he merged into the existence of Vishwadev. Trigartha or Susharma, son of Maharaj Hrudhaka, he was the king of Trigartha Desh. He was present also in the Swayamvar ceremony of Draupadi. He was one of the allies of Duryodhan, and he advised Duryodhan to attack the Matsya Desh, Darbhanga. During the time of cow stealing in Viratanagar, he was able to arrest Maharaj Virat, but later Maharaj Virat was released by Bhim. In the battle of Kurukshetra, he also fought very valiantly, but at the end he was killed by Arjun. Jayadratha, another son of Maharaj Hrudhaka. He was the king of Sindhu Desh, modern Sindh, Pakistan. His wife's name was Dushala. He was also present in the Swayamvar ceremony of Draupadi, and he desired very strongly to have her hand, but he failed in the competition. But since then, he always sought the opportunity to get in touch with Draupadi. When he was going to marry in the Shalya Desh, on the way to Kamyavan, he happened to see Draupadi again and was too much attracted to her. The Pandavas and Draupadi were then in exile after losing their empire in gambling, and Jayadratha thought it wise to send news to Draupadi in an illicit manner through Kotishasya, one of his associates. Draupadi at once refused vehemently the proposal of Jayadratha, but being too much attracted by the beauty of Draupadi, he tried again and again. Every time he was refused by Draupadi, he tried to take her away forcibly on his chariot, and at first Draupadi gave him a good dashing, and he fell like a cut root tree. But he was not discouraged, and he was able to force Draupadi to sit on the chariot. This incident was seen by Dhaumya Muni, and he strongly protested the action of Jayadratha. He also followed the chariot, and through Dhatreyika, the matter was brought to the notice of Maharaj Yudhishthir. The Pandavas then attacked the soldiers of Jayadratha and killed them all, and at last Bhim caught hold of Jayadratha and beat him very severely, almost dead. Then all but 5 hairs were cut off his head, and he was taken to all the kings and introduced as a slave of Maharaj Yudhishthir. He was forced to admit himself to be the slave of Maharaj Yudhishthir before all the princely order, and in the same condition he was brought before Maharaj Yudhishthir. Maharaj Yudhishthir was kind enough to order him released, and when he admitted to being a tributary prince under Maharaj Yudhishthir, Queen Draupadi also desired his release. After this incident, he was allowed to return to his country. Being so insulted, he went to Gangotri in the Himalayas and undertook a severe type of penance to please Lord Shiv. He asked his benediction to defeat all the Pandavas, at least one at a time. Then the battle of Kurukshetra began, and he took sides with Duryodhan. In the first day's fight, he was engaged with King Drupad, then with Virat, and then with Abhimanyu. While Abhimanyu was being killed, mercilessly surrounded by 7 great generals, the Pandavas came to his help, but Jayadratha, by the mercy of Lord Shiv, repulsed them with great ability. At this, Arjun took a vow to kill him, and on hearing this, Jayadratha wanted to leave the warfield and asked permission from the Kauravas for the cowardly action. But he was not allowed to do so. On the contrary, he was obliged to fight with Arjun, and while the fight was going on, Lord Krishna reminded Arjun that the benediction of Shiv upon Jayadratha was that whoever would cause his head to fall on the ground would die at once. He therefore advised Arjun to throw the head of Jayadratha directly onto the lap of his father, who was engaged in penances at the Samanta Panchaka pilgrimage. This was actually done by Arjun. Jayadratha's father was surprised to see a severed head on his lap, and he at once threw it to the ground. The father immediately died, his forehead being cracked in 7 pieces. Hare Krishna.